The first time I stood in front of my family, the air thick with the scent of frustration and disbelief, I remember the precision of their words. Not a single stroke of my hand was gentle, more like scraping, like ripping at something brittle. They called me a mistake, a reckless child with a mind wandering too far from the path laid out by science and expectation. Their laugh was the sound of a storm breaking, and I was left trembling, doubling over as they dismantled the very thing I had poured my heart into. I had once told them I saw beauty in broken things, in the way a crumbling wall could hold life if given the right soil. They called it painful, a waste of energy, a fear of what no one understands. Now, years later, I wonder if all those words were half-truths, half-lies. Because there it was, the sharp sting of their judgment, the cold certainty that I was an embarrassment, a mistake waiting to be corrected. The quote still echoes in my mind, "You're dreaming too much, Japanese letter, Japanese letter, Japanese letter," dreaming. They said I had no choice. The biology degree, the fieldwork, the relentless study of pollinators and urban ecosystems, it all seemed madness to them. A childhood of textbooks and lectures, a boy who counted every cell and every angle, living in a world that didn't want to see the beauty I was trying to unveil. But what should I have done? What was this supposed quixotic path? I didn't know it then, but I was learning something they never could, how hard it is to value something when no one else sees it. Back then I was a kid with a sketchbook and a passion so fierce it could have shattered glass. I'd paint strange things, blue skies over deserts, roots clinging to the bones of old buildings, bees dancing in the cracks of concrete. They'd dismiss it as a child's fantasy, a waste of time, but I knew better. I knew the pollinators would adapt, the ecosystems would thrive, and the cities would need to change. Was that enough? The twist came when the world began to listen to me. Not as a dreamer but as a scientist. My research on urban bee roots, those intricate networks of flowers, waste, and habitats, started to show how cities could become sanctuaries. I presented my findings at a conference not as a fantasy but as a blueprint. The skeptics turned to me with surprise. Their dismissal had been a shield, but now it became a wall I had broken. And then, the moment that hollowed me in. The day the mayor's office, the place I'd once scorned, held my presentation. The data, the diagrams, the passion radiating from me, it felt like a revelation. My family, who had once belittled me, stared me down like I'd finally found my voice. They didn't cry, they nodded, they murmured something about betrayal, but there was no anger, only recognition. I remember walking back to my childhood home, the same house where I'd once stood in front of them, heart pounding. The yard, once barren and lifeless, was now a meadow bursting with wildflowers I'd designed. The streams of water trickled along the edges and the trees leaned in as if listening. I thought of my father who'd never once tried gardening. Of my brother who'd always teased me for being too serious. Of the mother who'd once said, "You're wasting your talent." Now the chains of their mockery felt like memories I could unshackle. I had always believed that my eclectic approach, mixing art, science, and passion, was a flaw, but now I saw it as a strength. The families who'd once mocked me now looked at me with a respect I didn't expect. They saw the man behind the work, not the person who dared to dream. But the real payoff came on the morning I started the startup, my Pollinator network company. I was talking to a group of younger developers, scoffing at my ideas anymore. They laughed, but I felt it different. This time it was respect. "You've got a vision," one of them said. "Even if it's unconventional." I smiled, seeing the same determination in their eyes that once had been there for me. The story ends not with a sigh but with a truth. The family's rejection had been their greatest teacher. It had stripped away the noise, exposing the kernel of someone who refused to be defined by others' expectations. They laughed, they cried, they mocked, but they didn't defeat me. And in the end, I learned that worth isn't measured by what others say, but by what you create, even when the world is trying to silence you. The karma of my past had brought me here, not to apologize, but to rise. This is my story, not of failure, but of forgiveness, of a boy who once thought his dreams were too ridiculous to matter, and a family who finally understood what it meant to lift him up instead.